Greetings, programs, and welcome back to the Awesome Friday podcast. Back to our usual mode of being, where we're going to review two films this week. My name is Matthew, and with me, as is usual, is Simon. Hello. Simon,
Hello.
How are you today?
Hello, I'm fine, thank you. It's been a busy Saturday. I've been all over the place. I enjoyed, at the very beginning of this podcast, the sound you can hear is Matt rubbing his hands together like some kind of maniacal Mr. Burns getting ready to destroy things. I'm just busy, just so busy with family stuff. We've had soccer, and I've taken the car in for a service, and I also went to Starbucks. So that's my Vancouver life for you.
Treat yourself.
Well, I went with my children, and so there's no such thing. When you have children, there's no such thing as treat yourself unless you are by yourself.
Right.
And so I went to Starbucks and spent $40 on basically some lunch bits, because that's our life now in the big smoke.
You spent $40, so I imagine you got 3 drinks and a croissant.
That's exactly what we got, pretty much.
And I say that as someone who actually quite likes Starbucks generally. So, yeah.
It does feel like everything's more expensive. We don't need to begin our podcast by announcing that things are more expensive. I think people probably know that, but
one can only hope, because the reason it feels like things are more expensive is that they are more expensive.
And I keep saying to my kids, like, you'll never be this rich in your life. Like, wherever you go, you don't have to lift a finger or spend a penny on anything. People are just going to feed you and give you drinks wherever you go. And just you wait. When you have to start paying for your own shit, that's when it stinks.
Yeah, it really does. And you never get used to it. 41 years old, I'm still not used to it.
Oh, I'm 46 next month.
Yeah, I know. You're an old man, and you will always be older than me, just for the record.
Well, I mean, that's how it works. I mean,
yeah.
There's something very strange. We've talked about this a couple of weeks ago. Like, next month I'm turning 46, which means in 4 years, which is really not any kind of time, I'm going to be 50. And I've got, like, mentally, I've got a problem with that, because it feels like my imposter syndrome's pretty strong about turning 50, because 50-year-olds should probably have their shit together in some way. And
that's the great secret of life, is that everyone you know who appears to have their shit together is basically just faking it. So,
well,
I don't, and especially given, this is a much bigger conversation than we have time for today. but like, everyone's faking it, and then there's the whole, like, our parents' generation probably did have it together better than us, and then they turned conservative and retained all their wealth, and we have nothing, and capitalism was a mistake, and that's all I got the energy for this particular topic, is to say that, like, it's fine, we're all fine, and just, like I always try to tell myself, don't compare your feature film to everyone else's trailer. Like, you only get to see everybody else's highlight reel, everybody else's sizzle reel. You don't know what's going on in the feature film that is their messed up, probably, life. So, as every good coach I've ever had has said, the only person that you're competing with is yourself. And,
Wow. Did they say that in a montage? That sounds like a training montage. Wonderful.
Yeah. Yeah. Did you not see the montage happening around me? I know it's a radio show, but you should be able to see it. So.
I can imagine it. It's a beautiful thing.
Yeah. While I was doing that voiceover, there was images of me, like, boxing and, like, parrying with a sword and, like, running.
Just looking up in slow motion with the sweat dripping off your brow. Just one more.
Yeah, exactly. Running up the hill that is Oak Street in Vancouver. That's a very local reference.
Hey, I remember the time where I was taking my kids to daycare and I bumped into you, and I was going to work at like 7 a.m, and you were on the way to a swordplay, like, boot camp, because you're like, I just want to like get fit. It's like, I've never been that person.
To be fair, I was that person. I paid for like a 10-session boot camp, and I think I made it to 2 of them. So I've never really been that person with her. And that was years ago. That was years ago.
That's 2 more than I would have, my friend. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's true. So are you excited to get back to our like normal way of doing things. Now that we've had two 2022 best of episodes, we're just going to start
I
talking about normal
am.
movies again.
I am, and so to commemorate that, we're talking about two 2022 movies this week. I
Well, we're
I
still
am
catching up. We're still catching up.
I am like I don't I have trouble with all the listing and stuff because there's so much I miss. I've mentioned this a few weeks ago. There's so much I know I've missed, and I could give you a completely by the end of this year. I could probably give you a completely different list. But what's also nice as well is that I've stopped pretending to like stuff just because I think it should be liked. Do you know what I mean by that? Like, I'm at the
Yeah.
point in my life now where I would rather watch High School Musical 3 than probably 95% of the movies you put in front of me. And that's fine. I don't care. I'm just gonna love what I love, and that's fine. And
I mean, as it should be. I mean, that's I
yeah.
I think we should all be doing that. Really, I mean, whenever we talk about a film, I always strive to find at least something positive to say because even in movies that I don't like, there's people who are going to like it, and I think I should point out those things that I think they might like. Uh, but like, I don't feel the need to like everything. I know you're a little more hot cold than I am. Like I tend to fall more into like, yeah, it was
Um
fine on a lot of stuff, and you tend to be like, no or yes. Like it's very like
yeah. Well,
it's
my metrics are far less patient than yours now. Like, you'll look for things, and I'm so I I'm almost the opposite to how I used to be with movies. Like, I don't have the bandwidth to go in depth into stuff like I used to. I've just got too much in my head. And if I watch a movie, I need escapism for ideally a tight 90 minutes. And I want it to make me feel something and to be told in a creative way and it to be fun. And really, does it do that? Yes or no? Means, do I love it or do I dislike it? There's very rare instances of being in the middle for me anymore.
so what you're
But
saying is that we should really be operating on the Siskel and Ebert thumbs up, thumbs down, not a way of doing things rather than a 5-star rating. Hey,
well, a more model equivalent for me would be: did it make me feel as good as Michael Bay's Ambulance? That's the yes or no. That's the yes or no thing. That film genuinely makes me happy. I've just bought it on Blu-ray, on 4K, whatever you want to call that, UHD. And I turned on Crave the day after I received it. I turned on Crave, and it's just been added to Crave. And not an ounce of my body was like, "Oh, if only I'd waited, I could have watched it for free." It was just 100% Ambulance is on Crave. So many people are going to get to watch Ambulance now, and I have it on 4K, and that's brilliant. Like, it just makes me happy. That film makes me happy in ways that many other movies haven't made me happy.
yeah, and that makes it a thumbs up. Like this is what I'm
Yes,
saying. It's a thumbs up,
yes,
thumbs down scale
thumbs up.
from for
Right. So
Simon coming through.
you're not wrong.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
This is kind of like how I this year I've decided that it'll be I think I spoke a little bit about it, but I've decided to like restart my physical media collection. So I did go and dig
Yeah.
out the few like DVDs that I never got rid of and I found my limited edition DVD of Total Recall, which came in a circular tin that looks like Mars.
Oh
Um
God.
and we watched Total Recall the other day and that movie just I can't I don't know. I don't like everything Paul Verhoeven has ever done, but the films that he's made that I like, I love. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
Oh yeah. Oh sure.
yeah.
He's
And I choose now to believe that RoboCop and Total Recall and Starship Troopers are all in the same world. It's all one timeline.
that's your headcanon now. They're all the same thing.
Yeah, I mean, because if you
You're the
take the
same
news
thing.
clips from RoboCop and just splice them into the propaganda moments of Starship Troopers, they would they would they would not feel out of place,
I mean,
except maybe for like the grainy resolution.
you should push the envelope a little bit and see if you can squeeze Showgirls in there as well. Like, justify Showgirls in the Verhoeven universe, cinematic universe, and I'm sure you could find a way to do it.
I
Definitely.
mean, maybe it is. I haven't watched it in I don't know since it was probably new, but I do know people who unironically like sort of dig that movie.
Showgirls.
Yeah, but what's interesting is that like it's right in the middle of that run, right? Like RoboCop was 1987. Total Recall is 1990, and then it's Basic Instinct, Showgirls, and Starship Troopers back to back to back. So like,
Wow.
and like Basic Instinct is a great movie.
Yeah, it is.
Showgirls maybe not so much, but you can sort of see the like progression there, and then his like reset,
Yeah,
going back to that sort of over the top satirical style, and I dig it.
yeah,
I like it.
yeah. I do get
Yeah.
the feeling Verhoeven just does what he wants to do, and for good or bad, he does whatever he wants.
Well, he
I
is.
respect that.
I mean, especially now, he's still making movies, and he's like
It-
84, 83,
When was
84.
the when was the last film he made?
He made a movie called Benedetta in 2021, and he made a movie called Elle in 2016. Those are the last two I'm aware of.
I've never heard of those, or indeed anything past Hollow Man.
Oh, Black
I've
Book is
not.
really good. That's set during Second World War movie, Dutch.
Well,
It's quite good. Yeah.
I see.
We should all. The point of the story here is that we should all watch more Verhoeven, and that is very much not like the next film we're going to talk about, or the first, I should say, the first film we're going to talk about.
Yeah.
As we awkwardly segue towards a film that I think Simon would give a thumbs up to, and
So,
I would. I don't know if I would so much give it a thumbs down, but I don't really want to give it a thumbs up either. So
so this might be, yeah, this might be my fault.
let's dive into. I'll let you give us the rundown on the late 2022 release, now exclusively streaming on Shudder, Burial,
Burial.
and go.
Well, the first thing you need to do when you load up Shudder and look at Burial is to completely ignore their synopsis for this movie because, well, first of all, it sounds cool as shit. It sounds like it's a group of allies need to retrieve Hitler's dead body after the end of the Second World War and take it back with them, and they get ambushed by a group of Nazi werewolves. Now, I think I texted this to you straight away, saying this is how you make me watch a movie because I love. I'm quite scared of werewolves. I watched American Werewolf in London, entirely too young, so I'm quite scared of werewolves. But I love like Dog Soldiers comedy werewolves. I love like Dog Soldiers is brilliant. So I was like, okay, post World War II Dog Soldiers, I'm in 100%. And
And if
the
only the
problem
movie
was,
were that.
well, you. So the first thing of note is that this is a movie about actually a group of Russians who uh, discover Hitler's body in the bunker. He's killed himself. He's killed Eva Braun, and everyone's dead. And it turns out that Stalin wants a prize, so they want to sneak this body back because if the Nazi holdouts get Hitler's body, they can manipulate footage to make it look like he's not actually dead. And Stalin wants to look him in the eyes. The Russians like to look them in the eye, look the enemy in the eyes. So you've got this setup where the Russians are sneaking the body out on a truck, and they have to go through Poland, right?
Yep, Poland. Yep.
Yeah, and so they do get ambushed, but the werewolves they get ambushed by are not. There's no werewolves in this movie whatsoever. It's a nickname for high-ranking or older Nazis who basically at the end of the war, when the Nazis got beaten, they went into the woods and waited with sniper rifles and ammunition to kill any passing Russians, basically to keep killing troops as like guerrilla warfare almost. So they gained this reputation for being very, very hard to spot and very, very hard to kill because they were experts at hiding in forests. And so they get ambushed by a group of these Nazi holdouts, nicknamed werewolves. And
And they
there's one
wear wolf pelts and stuff.
they
It's
they do. So they use a burning moss to make their enemies hallucinate. So there's a few scenes where, because they're wearing furs, where the people that are tripping balls think they see werewolves. I wonder if they tried to kind of shoehorn that in, that aspect, to make it fit into Shudder a bit more, because what you've actually got is a very tight war movie that's really not supernatural at all. There's the kind of elements you find on Shudder are almost completely lacking, apart from this like 10 minutes where they kind of hallucinate these werewolves, and then that aspect is completely forgotten. So it does feel a bit shoehorned in. But what you have got is a group of Russians led by an actress called Charlotte Vega, who plays Brana, who's this female leader of this. Well, she's not the leader, but she's the driving force. She's like the lead
She's
scientist.
she's the intelligence officer in the
Yeah,
story.
yeah, yeah.
She's
And
the one who discovered Hitler's body, and she's the one who's tasked with bringing it back to Stalin. And
right,
yeah, and they get attacked in the
and
woods in
as
Poland. That's
and
that's
I,
the whole
I,
that's the whole
as
story.
they it is as they come through Poland, there's lots of commentary about who's the goodies here, who's the good guys, because the Polish hate the Russians too, because the Russians, when they came in, they executed people that they thought were sympathizers for the Nazis. So the Polish people they meet don't trust anyone. They equate the Nazis and the Russians equally, and the Russians are trying to convince everyone that they're not there to hurt anyone else now. And then there's a siege, as the werewolves sort of find them and close in, and they want Hitler's body. And maybe because I was expecting kind of Shudder exclusive, and to be fair, Shudder's a great service. Their exclusives are not high budget; they're usually high concept, supernatural horror stuff, obviously, and they're fun for what they are. And this isn't any of those things. It feels it's made in a far less kind of fantastical way, and it's a really tight, tense war movie with some really good messages in it, for me anyway. So what did you not? What didn't work for you here?
I mean, honestly, just hearing you talk about it makes me more upset about it because
Oh no!
it's none of those things. It's none of the.
What? Okay,
uh, I will
okay.
disagree. Like
What?
it's 95 minutes long and it feels flabby. It's like the werewolf stuff. So you're not wrong. The werewolf stuff, like all the hallucinogenic stuff, feels super shoehorned in. It feels like even though it's only 95 minutes long, it feels to me like the movie could have been 15 minutes shorter and better for it. Um, there's a long stretch in the second act where very little happens and characters sit around and speak in big expository dumps and basically like sit around and say like, here are the explicit morals that my character brings to this fable of modern atrocity. And I and like at the end of the
Wow.
day, I didn't really dislike it, but like I was pretty bored by the end. I was
What?
pretty bored by
Did
the
you
end.
did you watch the same movie I did? Because usually it's me getting
Apparently not.
fans.
Apparently
Man,
not.
I loved this film. I
And
thought
it
it was
feels
super tense and
and like
really like
it,
gritty.
yeah, no, it feels like it's definitely like low budget and high concept, and I get that. But I think I was thinking about it this morning because I'm a dork and I log everything on Letterboxd, and I'm just gonna say this is what I said on Letterboxd. It's pretty much I think the best um, summation of how I feel. In that my take is basically that it's fine, even if it is a less interesting movie than advertised about a way more interesting idea than advertised.
Well, you're right. That's the one thing I do agree with. The idea is much more interesting than low budget Nazi dog soldiers, in that it's a proper actual tense war movie, and
Is it? Is it? Is it?
the
I mean,
pace.
it is. It is a war movie. You are correct.
I mean,
Um,
it felt almost like a bottle movie, because they're stuck in the truck. The truck gets stuck very very quickly. So between the small area of forest they go into, and then the house they end up in, and then the church, it's all in a small area, and it feels almost a bit like a siege, like a bottle movie. And I
no,
love
it's
that.
definitely that. Like, it's definitely like basically a single location. Bad guys closing in on the good guys.
Yeah.
But the dialogue is clunky and the pacing is um, inconsistent, and the bad guys don't really have any discernible. Um, like, there's a really good nugget, a very good core of an idea there as to why the bad guys want Hitler's body and why the main character. Brana very much wants to get the body back to Stalin, and it's just not really explored in very much depth. And the bad guys end up not really having any motivation for remaining Nazis other than they just kind of love fascism. Uh,
Well, I mean,
and maybe
do you need more for Nazis to fill? Do you need a treatise? There were tons of Nazis who didn't give up after the Second World War.
no, but I mean, in a movie like this that's trying to have more high-minded ideals, more and a deeper it 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 seems to want to have a deeper exploration of that idea and then does not do it
Do
for
you
me.
not feel the prologue and the epilogue have that though? With the older version played by Harriet Walter, is the older version of Branagh
I mean, this
dealing
is
dealing with a neo-Nazi. I thought that was a really effective end and beginning. Sort of
yeah.
like
I mean,
the
anything with Harriet Walter can't be all bad.
is she
So
famous? Is she Canadian famous?
no, she's British. She's a Order of the British Empire. She's
Right?
won like Olivier awards and Tony, been nominated for Tonys, and she's.
Why have I never heard of her?
I mean, she's to
Let's
more
have a look.
recent to more recent audiences. She has like one scene in I think The Last Jedi, and but she's also like um she's Rebecca's mom in Ted Lasso, and she is the main character's mom in Succession. Um, like she's around. She's been around for a long time, and
Okay.
she's very like highly regarded, like well respected character actress. She's wonderful. She's basically always great.
Who's she in The
Um,
Force Awakens?
I can't remember. I think it's The Last Jedi actually. She's like a
Uh,
doctor who's treating
in which?
Chewbacca, and Chewbacca's like saying how
Oh, right.
I can't remember exactly the dialogue, but he's like Chewbacca talking at her, and she's like, "Yes, I bet you are very brave."
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
um, and yeah, I don't know. Like this movie is like,
Oh,
I'm still gonna give it a 3 out of 5. I think it's fine. It's just so frustratingly fine. It's fine. It's totally fine. It's totally fine. You could do worse than to watch it.
I
It's only 95 minutes. So 3 to 5. Watch it if you want to. I don't. It's fine.
wow, you're done already with this filming.
I'm done. Yeah.
Um, I gave it a 4 out of 5. I thought it was really, really effective. I really liked the lead actress Charlotte Vega. One thing I absolutely loved about this film is how to portray different languages and their sort of the contrast and their clash.
Yeah, that
And
was interesting.
one 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 thing they did really really well is to not make any of the cast put on any accents that weren't their natural accents. So the language of this film is German, but we hear it as naturally accented English, and then everyone else in this movie speaks their own native language. But if they're asked to speak German, they use broken English instead. And I thought that was really really good, and I think it
Well,
sort of
where
bypassed.
that sort of falls apart for me is that the language of the film is actually Russian and German, and it's only really the Polish people who end up speaking in broken English because they don't really fully understand one or the other. But there's scenes where like it is clever the way that there's one scene in particular with Barry Ward who plays a character called Tor, who's like trying to speak to a local, and he's clearly speaking Russian, and then he's like, "Wait, do you speak German?" And the way he speaks never changes, but the way she understands him does. And yes, that is very clever and very effective.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, but like it also like when it works, it works, and when it doesn't, you're just like, why are all these people British? Why are they all British if they're
I
like
didn't bother me at all.
it only bothers
I
me
was
because
relieved.
they try so hard to make it clear that they're speaking different languages, but then they're all different. Anyway, it just didn't
I
work
mean,
for me.
it's just for me it did. It's just a theatre trick. Like I was just thankful that we didn't have Tom Felton doing his Polish accent. Come here, I will help you. Like I was really, really thankful that we didn't have bad European accents. And
Why does he? Why does your
Tom,
impression of Tom Felton doing a Polish accent sound like he's from
yeah,
Transylvania?
Exactly, because he's really bad at it. That was my impression of him doing a bad accent. But I mean, Tom Felton is advertised front and center on this. He's not in it very much. He has a nice role in it, and he's fine in it. He's a nice guy. He's a fine actor, but he's not in this very much. So don't go in uh, expecting Draco Malfoy versus the Nazis. Although I would watch the shit out of that. But
Yeah, but
he's
he's
fine.
he's also he's also the character who shows up and basically when they're like, "What are you doing here?" He's like, "Ah, I'm the audience insert. I'm the one to make clear the gray
Oh
moral
man.
area in which
Oh,
this
you're
film
so
exists."
cynical. Man,
Yeah.
you
It
were not in
doesn't.
the mood for this film.
I was, yeah. I mean, to be fair, maybe I just wasn't in the mood for this
You,
film
you are not
because
in the mood for this film.
I'm usually pretty forgiving of stuff like this, and I just could not get past any of it this time. So maybe it's me. Maybe it's me. I'm the problem.
It's you.
It's me.
It's me.
Um, but like
Maybe.
I didn't dig it. Didn't. But I mean, I did. At the end of the day, like again, it's fine. It's too long. But the stuff that works really works enough that it's fine. 3 out of 5. It's fine. Let's move on.
Oh no! Wow.
Uh,
Maybe I haven't finished. Oh my god.
oh,
One thing I will say is that it doesn't feel like it fits on Shudder at all, and maybe that's part of the problem. Like Shudder has a type of thing, and that's why it's a really great streaming service. It has a type of movie that is usually fantastical or has horror or some kind of spookiness, and this this really doesn't. The bit that is there is shoehorned in, and it would be far more fitting on a streaming service that has more straightforward, non-fantastical stories. I'll say that much. But if you do have Shudder, then I think you should watch this because potentially you might like it as much as I did, but potentially you might hate it as much as Matt did. So why
but
don't you
again,
see what?
this is one of those things where it's difficult because at the end of the day, I think it's fine. I don't think it's a bad movie, but I can't. I also can't really think of anything particularly great to say about it at this juncture.
Wow.
So like,
Okay.
it's it's fine, but is
Okay.
a
Well,
good way to
well,
classify this one.
I loved it. 4 stars. Go watch.
I will say that it doesn't feel out of place on Shudder to me, but that's maybe
um,
because it's an IFC Midnight produced film, and IFC and AMC and Shudder, it's all one big umbrella.
mm,
So genre stuff tends to like it just makes sense. So that's where it ended up.
yeah, but
If
it
nothing
doesn't
else,
really have the genre stuff in it.
I'm just glad that it does exist. Like I don't want to have to subscribe to AMC Plus as well to see things. So I'm glad it is somewhere it can at least be watched.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah,
Good. Okay, so that's Burial. What do
that's
we?
that's
I have a
Burial.
feeling. I have a feeling you're going to be slightly more optimistic and positive, rather, about our second movie. What's our second movie?
Oh, our second movie is the once again late 2022 release Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, which comes, I believe, 11 years after the original Puss in Boots movie, which was the fifth movie in the Shrek franchise. I think it went
I
Shrek
have
one,
no
two, three,
idea.
four, and then Puss in Boots, and then it's been 11 years, and now it's Puss in Boots 2. And it turns out, and I've said this in other places because I watched it like a week ago. But I don't know if you remember this little film that was my favorite film of 2018 called Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. But I have distinct memories when that film came out, just being like, people are going to copy the stylistic and parts of this movie, and we're all going to be better for it. And now, 4 years later, we have our first amazing example of that because there's a Puss in Boots: The Last Wish takes a ton of cues stylistically and technically from Spider-Man to the Spider-Verse, and then tells a really, really good story with the characters. And I kind of loved this movie. I didn't expect to, but I really loved this movie. Um, I guess I would just get the briefest of plot synopsis is that Puss in Boots is your fearless hero, and he has died 8 times. He discovers he's on his last life, and then a cloaked wolf shows up to fight him because he's an arrogant. Uh, he's arrogant and not living his life to the fullest, and he wants to show him up. And then Puss in Boots gets scared for the first time ever and goes on the run. And then we learn about a magical star in a dark forest that can grant wishes. And he decides he can go get the star and wish for his lives back so he can be the fearless hero again. And the overall arc of the story is him learning to live life to the fullest and appreciate what he has. And it's wonderful. It's just wonderful. I don't know. What did you think about it? I don't want to say too much about it, but it's wonderful. It's
So
wonderful.
this is the third Puss in Boots movie. There was a very quick follow up, but I get the feeling it was like Aladdin 2 style of straight to DVD. And honestly, I wasn't expecting much. The What was really interesting about this is that I started hearing, as I'm sure you did, I started hearing the feedback from people who've actually seen it, and suddenly I
Sorry. I think the other thing you're thinking about Puss in Boots was a TV show. I don't think it was a movie.
the Three Amigos was a TV show.
I don't know what you're talking about.
So Puss in Boots.
Shrek franchise, Shrek 2, Shrek the Third, Shrek Forever, Puss in Boots: The
So
Last Wish.
so
Those are
Puss in
those
Boots
are
the
the.
Three Puss in Boots the Three Amigos was 2012. Oh, it's 13 minutes. There we go. Well,
That's a
it
short.
still
Yeah, that's a
still
short.
counts.
Yeah.
And that's about as long as I can stay awake for in a movie these days, anyway. Unless it's Michael Bay's ambulance. So I wasn't expecting much, and then I heard people talking about it, and then I watched it, and it is. You're totally right. Like this has got Spider Verse DNA throughout, but it's not just the amazing colors and the animation, and they do that really. I if I don't want to use technical term, but that thing with the frame rate where they kind of use a slightly slower frame rate to make things. I don't
Oh,
know
yeah,
how
they
it. I
so
don't know
they
how.
it's called animating on the twos, and basically it means that they
Of course
certain
you fucking
characters
know what it is.
certain characters at certain moments, especially in action sequences, and it's super effective in these
So
sequences, are
I don't
animated.
know.
Every other frame is animated, and at times characters are on opposite twos, if that makes sense. So
Yes.
if
Yeah.
one
Yeah.
character is on frame 1 and 3, the other one's on frame 2 and 4, and it's
Right.
super effective for really creating really kinetic motion.
So I don't know how you can by lowering the animation frame rate it actually makes it feel more vibrant and energetic. I would love to know the science behind that. But there's a fight early on, as you texted me, like, oh, this film does not fuck around. Like from the beginning, there's a fight with a troll at the beginning that the camera it just sweeps and comes down to his feet and then jumps up to the troll, and it's so unlike the kind of crappy action scenes you see in like churned out kids movies. It's really really good, and an extra element of this film that I think really ties it together is the writing is on point, the design's on point, and the antagonist. The reason the Puss in Boots feels scared for his first time is because the death wolf, is fucking terrifying. Like absolute, genuinely scary antagonist in a kids movie, and not by using jump scares, just by being terrifying and quiet. And the he's often uh, shot, if you like, or animated with his face direct to camera, and it has an incredible feeling. And as the movie goes on, and Puss in Boots is on his last life now, and he's trying to work out what it means to be him instead of the legend, and that he keeps running to different situations, and the wolf keeps finding him, but not running after him, just walking after him. If you've seen It Follows, and that kind of terrifying moment where you realize he's there and walking towards you, and he'll never stop. Like it is so effective, and
Any chance to bring up It Follows, I love
I
it.
do love that movie like a baby. But then all the other characters that are introduced don't feel superfluous at all. Like everyone in the ensemble has a part to play in that ensemble, including a fantastically realized Goldilocks and the Three Bears, all voiced brilliantly. Like the voice casting in this is fantastic, and it builds to this like culmination of it just makes sense. Like the ending makes sense, and you can follow what's going on, and it's really fantastical. It doesn't hold back from the places it goes to, literally, and it's just got a lovely ending. Like it's one
Yeah,
of the
it's
best kids movies, or one of the best animations I've seen in decades.
yeah. I mean, the whole idea of Puss in Boots trying to reconcile who he is versus who the legend of him is, and the reason that the wolf is after him, and who the wolf is ultimately revealed to be, which I don't want to
Mm.
directly spoil, um, is all wonderful. And the way it resolves that the last scene at the end, where they do resolve their conflict, or at least this aspect of it, is wonderfully written. And everyone who's in the movie plays into the same themes in wonderful ways. Like Puss in Boots ends up on this adventure to find the last wish with Kitty Softpaws, who is a female um, cat, and his like ex partner, and then there's Perito, who is a dog, who's like a super naive, happy dog, voiced by Harvey. I don't. I'm gonna say his name wrong, but Gillian. I don't know. He's Guillermo from What We Do in the Shadows, and each of them is there in a fully realized way, but also in ways that impact Puss's character positively and help him come to resolution. And um, Florence Pugh is maybe one of the best Florence Pugh movies of 2022, which is saying a lot. She was in a bunch of movies in
She's
2022, but
great.
she's great as Goldilocks, who's the leader of the Three Bears crime family, which is just wonderful,
Yeah.
with Ray Winstone and Olivia Colman and Samson Ko, all just being great. There's one more antagonist who's Big Jack Horner, who's obviously an adult version of Little Jack Horner from the nursery rhyme, and I really
Mm.
enjoy that everyone in this story, and I know it's a holdover from Shrek, but I really enjoy that everyone understands that like they are originally from fairy tales. And there's even one moment where someone was like, "That's not even a very good fairy tale," and Jack Horner's like, "It's a nursery rhyme, actually." um, and again, it's like I don't want to spoil the ending, but the the conflict between, because like Big Jack Horner is the antagonist, um, but the wolf is like the driving force of the story for Puss. And Wagner Mora, who, if you've never seen him and stuff, he's legitimately great all the time, but he is pitch perfect as the wolf in this.
Mm. Yeah.
And I legitimately can't wait to watch this movie again. Like
Yeah,
it's
I watched it twice in 2 days, and it's one of those lovely films, again, much like Spider-Verse, where every time, well, each of the times I've watched it, I've noticed tons of things I didn't the first time. And also, I'm not great at identifying voices the first time. I didn't know it was Florence Pugh, and my like the lizard part of my brain knew it was Ray Winston, but I couldn't put a name to it. And so it was really nice watching it again and enjoying the voice performances because they're all so perfect. And it's just little things. It's so sensitively written as well. Like one of the story elements is that Perito, the little puppy, is a therapy dog, and Puss, who is now for the first time in his life feels nervous. At one point, when he meets about the middle of the movie, he re-sees the wolf, and he has a considerable panic attack, and the camera's just held as the dog just comes over and puts his head on his stomach, and the only sound is Puss's heartbeat getting slower and slower. And it was just lovely to see anxiety addressed in a kid's movie. It's not an element that's usually present in films, and
mhm.
so many kids suffer from it. And I just think that one scene is probably going to have quite an effect on so many people. And the whole the whole theme of the hero feeling nervous, and that it's okay to be nervous by the end of it, like he accepts who he actually is instead of the legend he's been living for so many years. Just full of really great messages. It's just really really well written.
Yeah,
um,
it's
so Ethan Cohen has a story credit on it, which I thought was interesting.
oh, interesting. I didn't know that.
Mm.
I do think it's great. You're wrong. You're not wrong. It's great that it is. The story is not about Puss in Boots like losing a weapon or facing just a generally superior foe that he then has to go on like a training adventure for in order to defeat. It is a story about his mental health and his ability
Mm-hmm.
to combat that, and the idea that his acceptance of himself is important. Is yeah, it's a great movie. It's a really great movie, and
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to oversell it, but you should definitely watch this movie. Um, it's so good, and I think I know Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio is winning all the awards, and to be fair, deservedly so. But this movie belongs in those conversations for best animated feature everywhere this year. It's so
Yeah.
wonderfully put together, and I would argue that I didn't do this, but if I were going to now, especially because I saw it outside of 2022, but if I were going to put together a list of like maybe the best just like individual characters of 2022, I think that the wolf would be on that list.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah. For
he's
sure.
so good.
Yeah. It's interesting you bring up Pinocchio. One of my issues with Pinocchio was how I know it really brought out the dark elements of the original story that Disney didn't bring out, so that's fine. And uh, it's incredibly dark. And I think as a kids movie, I think Puss in Boots is better for as a family movie, as an
Yeah,
animation. Like uh,
I don't
the
even think of
technical, the
Pinocchio as
technical.
a. I don't even think of Pinocchio as a kids movie. Honestly,
uh,
it's maybe a little
Yeah, well, we
too
know
dark.
that, but there's going to be tons of parents who see Pinocchio and think, "Oh, it's Pinocchio.
Yeah.
This is a kids' movie." So, um, yeah, it's a really really successful movie in that it addresses things for kids, but is also a great movie for adults to watch as well. And
Yeah.
there's loads of little like adult laced humor moments as well. And I really like John Mulaney's delivery as Jack Horner was really great as well. It was very very dry and really
Hmm.
appealed to me. Really appealed to me as well.
And
Lots of meta humor.
it did hang on to that really the thing that that when the Shrek movies did this, when they do it well, they do it really exceptionally well, and that is the really again like you're saying the meta stuff. And I think my favorite example of that is there's an ethical bug, which is a direct parody
Yes,
of the talking cricket, like
I
of Jiminy
forgot about
Cricket,
him.
and he's
It's so good.
just so good because he ends up being with Jack Horner for most of the movie, trying to be like do the right
Try
thing,
to make him good.
and the voice actor who plays him, this guy called Kevin McCann, is doing like this amazing, just like dialed to 11 Jimmy Stewart impression the whole time, like oh
But
gee, Jack, maybe you should do the right thing in this situation. Like, it's just it's so perfectly done.
and
Um,
the direction of his reactions to when Jack Horner's like, "Oh, kill them! Well, just kill them all." And there's a beautiful frozen moment, and the cricket's just like, "What?"
yeah, yeah, yeah.
uh,
and I don't know if did you stay through the credits? Did you see there's
of
an end
course,
credits tag that
absolutely.
teases more films in the Puss in Boots slash Shrek
Shrek, Shrekiverse.
universe. And if you'd asked me like even like last year if I wanted more Shrek movies, I'd have been like, do I? Do we? Does anyone? Do we want that? But having seen this, yes, I very much do.
So I'm in two minds about where this could go. One of the elements of Spider Verse that I found interesting is that apparently the animators had much less oversight and were told by the directors to be like, be more crazy, like do things you wouldn't usually do, express this in ways that you want to do, like do something else with it, and that's why you've got all the craziness. And I got that kind of feeling from this as well. I would love to think that the animators were just told, well, what would you do here? How could you make this more vibrant? How could you do this? And that way of working is more expensive and takes longer than just someone going, okay, animate, here's your storyboards, animate this keyframe to this keyframe and do it exactly as I want. And with more Shrek movies, I hope they keep this almost experimental nature that Puss in Boots felt like. It felt like something else. It felt like something pushing the boundaries of. It's so unlike other Shrek movies, and I really
Hmm.
hope if they are going to make another Shrek, I really hope they keep that trust in the animators and allowing the animators to do something crazy instead of thinking, okay, it's a Shrek. This is a mainline Shrek. We have to draw it in and be a bit more Disney here. And I would really hope they keep that kind of dangerous element to it.
Yeah, I mean, I hope so. I think that animated films are going to continue to be, to politely put it, to be influenced by Into the Spider-Verse for
Yeah.
many years and decades to come. And I would hope that, especially now with especially the critical reception to The Last Wish,
Yeah, which has been great.
yeah. So I
Yeah.
hope that that DreamWorks really takes that and runs with it. That they, because I mean that's DreamWorks wants to win awards, right? They want the critical reaction to be great. So,
Yeah, sure.
and I think that they understand the power of a good story with the power of excellent animation, and I think that if
Mm,
that this is both of those things. And
yeah, it really
I know
is.
we always go to, when we talk about, even now, even when the track record is a bit spottier, we always go to Pixar when we talk about, great CG animated films. But I think at this point, DreamWorks might actually have more of my favorite animated CG animated films
Hmm.
than
Hmm.
Pixar does. They
Yep.
certainly
I
have.
always
They certainly have my favorite franchise of CG animated movies, which is How to Train Your Dragon. So,
I always like to bring in Illumination into the conversation. I think Illumination are Pixar if they wanted to be more popular, like populist. Like Illumination, I think deserve to be mentioned with any other high-ranking animation studio. I think they're always really good at combining quick humor with great scripts with great animation, and
hmm,
uh, I always like to watch their movies too.
yeah. Well, I think that's all we can say without getting into crazy, crazy spoiler territory. So let's not
Yeah, you should
do
watch this.
that.
How many stars? How many stars for you?
4 to 5.
Yeah,
You?
same for me. This is a 4-star movie. It's really really excellent, and if you have a chance to see it in the cinema, then try to do that because the kids will love it. It's a great kids adults family film. You'll come out of it feeling great. It's great for the eyes and some great messages too. And I'm sure it sings on the big screen as well.
And to be fair, I think honestly, in a 2022 turned out to be, I think, one of the best films in recent best years for film in recent memory, and any other year, I think this would be an easy 5 stars. Like I think
Mhm.
it's uh it's just part of that ongoing 2022 thing. Yeah, good.
Interesting.
Well, we're gonna call it there. No idea what we're covering next week, but I am starting my Sundance coverage this weekend, so look for that. Um, that is going to be it for us, though. So thank you so much for listening. If you're new to the show, thank you so much for joining us. And if you are a long time or even second time listener, welcome back. We love that you're here. Reach out. You can find me on Twitter at SmatthewAF. You can find Simon on Twitter at Temporary Pen, or you can find us on Twitter at AwesomeFridayCA. You can just email us, comments at awesomefriday.ca, or just go to the website. There's a form. There's lots of ways to get a hold of us, as it turns out, and we love hearing from people. We record this here in Vancouver on the unceded lands of the Musqueam, Tsleil-Waututh, and Squamish nations. And I forgot to say that we have a Patreon and a Ko-fi, and those will be in the show notes. And if you want to support us more directly, leave a review, smash the like button, subscribe on your podcasting platform of choice. But for now, again, thank you for listening and for joining us on this Awesome Friday.
Thanks. Bye.